Dreamers and Make-Believers. In today's video, I'm doing my reading wrap-up for October. Yes, for October. Now I did, I'm pretty sure I did a mid-month wrap-up. So this is just the last books that I've read of the last half of October, and that was 3 books. 1 was a traditionally published paperback book, and 2 were indie books by indie authors that I've never read before and that I've just discovered, and I thought I'd try them out. Of course, they were fantasy authors, so I don't have the physical copy with me, but I'm going to review them in the order I read them. So I'm going to be starting with the indie book I read called Rise of the Flame by K.N. Lee. K.N. Lee? Yeah, K.N. Lee. Yeah, she has 2 names. There's Kenya Cooper and K.N. Lee. I read the one by K.N. Lee, which is a YA fantasy called The Rise of the Flame. So the story of The Rise of the Flame is really, really unique. It is a whole other world, and it basically follows the lives of about 4 different people who are the sons, who are the children of, I suppose you could say gods. And they have to kind of pay for the sins of their father, so they're going to enter a war with others who are paying for the sins of their father, and their fathers are Hades, kind of bad. Not Hades, but they're bad. Empires, they've got shadow elves and silver elves, and everything has different powers and different ways of interacting with each other. I don't think I'm explaining this very well, but basically it's really epic fantasy with it starts with a glossary of how everything works, the index of how everything goes together, the powers, the abilities of the different kinds of people. And the Rise of the Flame. The Flame is basically one of these girls who is the descendant, of this goddess or god, who has to fulfill her prophecy in a way, I suppose. I mean, this is just the beginning, so I haven't read the next the next book, which seems to be it seems like that's what it was building up to. She's got to fulfill some kind of prophecy. But basically, in this book, she's on the run. She's born, and she's on the run, but she doesn't know why. And then she discovers who she is or what she is, kind of. And she sees this other guy in her dreams, and he's also a descendant of, one of the gods, kind of thing. And he also sees her in his dreams, and they heal each other, but they don't actually meet. But they need to meet in order to save the world, sort of thing. So it's really, really an interesting story, and I really enjoyed getting into it. I gave this book a 4. I felt that some parts were a little bit fast-paced. There was a bit too fast that I didn't really understand what was happening, and I felt like some parts, there was a few editing mistakes, not major, but as a writer, of course, that's gonna stick out to me. So I gave it a 4 just for those reasons. But it was a really, really unique and interesting story, and I'm definitely looking forward to finding out what exactly happens in the next one, and if these 2 characters ever meet and what exactly comes from their meeting. So that's Rise of the Flame by K.N. Lee, and if you're not if you're into fantasy and you're keen to find another reader, another author that writes fantasy, and you're not fussy about editing, not that it's bad, just it stuck out to me. And yes, bearing in mind that some things might not be as clear and precise as you might like, just simply because it's simply because that's what I found. But I'm a writer, so a little bit fussy in terms of editing and stuff, then you're gonna really enjoy it. But the story itself is definitely unique. I still find myself thinking about the story and wondering what's gonna happen, so I think it's definitely hit the mark there, and it's a 4-star in my opinion. And then the next book that I read after that book was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, the second in the Shadow and Bone saga, and needless to say, I absolutely loved it. So if you haven't read the Shadow and Bone series, you should. It follows the story of a girl, just an ordinary girl. She thinks she's an ordinary girl, and discovers that she's actually Grisha, so she has these powers and abilities, and her powers and abilities are very important, and she can basically save or destroy the world. And so this is what happens, this is Shadow and Bone's summary kind of thing, because I don't want to spoil Siege and Storm. But basically, a lot of stuff happens in Shadow and Bone between her best friend and new friends, and stuff happens, and she kind of has to make a choice of what she's going to do and how she's going to do it, and if she's going to, good, bad, what are you gonna go for? And so Siege and Storm just kind of continues that epic adventure, and it does not disappoint at all. It gives you all the appropriate feels. It is definitely a 5-star in my opinion, and I would not change a thing. Not change a thing. Like, it was really, really good. And there was a part where something happened between characters, and I was just like, no! And then I was like, oh, I see. Oh, I see. And it just does not disappoint. So highly, highly, highly recommend the Grisha trilogy. It's known as by Leigh Bardugo, Shadow and Bone, but I'm sure many of you already know this epic, beautiful series. But yes, so this did not disappoint, and for those of you that have read it, the Darkling sucks. Let's just agree on that. And maybe I'm going to do a spoilery one so we can just fangirl. If you have read it, we can just talk about this and agree that the Darkling sucks. Yeah, right? Okay. Good. Okay, so that's that for the Siege and Storm, because as I said, I don't really want to spoil it because it's a sequel, so just bear in mind it's great and you should read it, and I gave it a 5 stars. The next book that I read was another indie book. I'm actually not finished it, but I'm almost finished it, so I thought I'd throw it in here because I'm going to be finished it by the time I upload this video, because I always shoot the video a little bit before, so I'm going to be finished it. And this one is called The Grey-Eyed Storm. It is by Christy... Oh, shame, I can't remember. Christy. It's by Christy, called The Grey-Eyed Storm. You will find it on Amazon. So The Grey-Eyed Storm is also another great, unique story. Christy has such an imagination. It's about, again, discovering you have abilities, which is the best. Okay, so in The Grey-Eyed Storm, it's a girl with gray eyes, like super, super gray eyes. And there are different people with different colored eyes. I mean, there are other gray eyes, and there are green eyes and golden eyes and crimson-eyed, and they're all different colored eyes, and each person with different eyes has different abilities and different powers, and some of them are just destined to be bad. It's just in their nature and in their blood. It's who they are based on their eye color. And some of them are destined to be good, and then some of them are hybrids, which means they're a combination, and you don't actually know what's going to happen there, and that's what makes it exciting. So it's very interesting and a really fast-paced read. Not too fast, though. A really fast-paced read, and parts of it made me go, actually skin crawl, kind of scary. Now I've also, of course, read some reviews on this book before, before doing this, and I hear that the ending is absolutely epic. So I'm sure that even after the ending, I'm gonna rave about it. But again, I must point out what I liked and what I didn't like. So what I love is the uniqueness of the story, and I really like the whole idea of the story and where it's going. And I feel like if the ending is as epic as I've seen in the reviews, I'm really, 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 really gonna like it and want the next one. But the things I didn't like, again, were some editing things, editorial issues. And this one was more like spelling mistakes and wrong words being used in places. So I really enjoyed it, or I really am enjoying it. But there were some points of confusion and it's just editing issues. I mean, if Christy was to fix those issues, it would probably be a 5-star book because it's really good. Yeah, it's just the turn of phrase sometimes and yeah, and editing issues. But, that happens in all books, and, that's what rewrites are for, and that's what relaunches are for. So I recommend it if you, again, are not fussy about editing issues and, some misused words, but not terrible. I really it's a good story. It's a really unique story, and again, I find myself thinking about it sometimes. So I am enjoying reading it, and I give this one a 3.75 to a 4. Same reasons as The Rise of the Flame, but I feel like there's a few more mistakes in this one than there is in The Rise of the Flame. So yeah, it's just 3.75 instead of 4, but it's still a really unique story, and I think that, you're going to enjoy it, and there's lots of people out there that have enjoyed it and given it 5 stars because they're not as particular as me, so that's really good, and yeah, and then I really recommend it. So, to sum up, that is my October reading wrap-up, and I have not decided what I'm going to be reading in the month of November yet. Well, I've got some ideas, but then, I'm toying with ideas because I want to mix it up a little bit. So I think I am going to read another traditionally published book because I've done 2 indie books, so another traditionally published one. But I'm waiting on Rune and Rising because I don't want to end the saga just yet. So I don't think I'm going to be reading Rune and Rising, but I am going to read something wonderful and awesome. So I just have to decide between my ever expanding TBR. So that will probably be next week's video, what I am reading. And if you have any suggestions of what I can read, then please put them in the comment section below, because I have not decided yet. But I want something epic, and as you all know by now, I want something YA and I want something fantasy or new adult. Okay, let's do this. Okay, have a great day. Bye.